The timing of it was all really clever on Blake's part. She just dropped this bombshell lawsuit that went into absolutely shocking detail.
I think that was tone deaf. I honestly don't think that you can take away from that.
Oof, it's so messy, isn't it?
If she has been through what she claims she has been through, wouldn't you be a bit sort of hostile on that in that 100%. Production talk?
If you took WhatsApp messages and text messages from, I'm sure, any industry and laid them out there, they would look so shocking and pretty much everyone would be cancelled for something they've written. She just went through this list of really shocking tales and she said there's loads more where that came from.
I mean, these people going to prison and their lives being ruined, you know, it doesn't bring Liam back.
I'm fascinated by this girl.
I mean, you couldn't really write it, could you?
Hello and welcome to the Virgin Radio Showbiz Wrap. I'm Maddie, Hale, and each week we'll be running through all that you need to know from the world of entertainment. The Sun on Sunday's Hannah Hope and the Sun's Amanda Devlin are back with me after the Christmas break. Guys, obviously we've been diving into showbiz while everyone else has been celebrating. We don't keep our foot off the pedal.
Showbiz never sleeps, does it, ever?
And we know that one of the biggest stories of 2024 dropped on December 20 and continued through over the New Year period. The Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni saga. Oh my gosh. This is just details after details. I don't even know if I can keep up. I don't know how you guys do it. But your reaction, first of all, to that first kind of legal complaint that Blake Lively dropped on December 20?
Well, I felt that the timing of it was all really clever on Blake's part because, you know, she thought everyone had just gone to sleep for Christmas and everyone, you know, had like their foot off the pedal and she just dropped this bombshell lawsuit that went into absolutely shocking detail. It had the New York Times on side, sort of working with her, talking about all of the harassment she experienced on set of It Ends With Us. And they'd also subpoenaed all these really bombshell text messages between Justin and his PR team. Shocking.
Yeah, what did you think, Amanda? Where's your kind of, I guess, loyalty swaying right now?
I think that's what it makes you have to face, is that it's very much like a he said, she said, and you've got both of their fans all kind of arguing their case online, and it's really interesting to go through and see all the comments. But what we've kind of learnt through the text messages is that maybe not all of the comments are real. They're not from real people, that they are, it's bots. All kind of, they're bots. It's all being made up to try and...
Do you mean the slander kind of Blake Lively?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think every negative comment that was underneath about Blake was actually true. It was from someone that was on Justin's side and trying to change the narrative, and they were sort of getting in on all the comments and making arguments. I do actually go down a bit of a rabbit hole of like watching all of the people arguing within themselves. Like, they're so passionate, these fans, aren't they? I mean, they just get so involved.
Because there's so many moving parts to this drama that's happened, and the main one being that It Ends With Us, obviously a movie that came out in I think August. The fans, me being one, of Colleen Hoover's books are so invested. So there was an investment in the casting from the start, and who would play Ryle and Lily and who would play Atlas. And so when the casting came to light, people were a bit unsure just because they had casted a bit
off.
A bit older. The characters are meant to be about 25, and obviously Justin Baldoni's 40 and Blake Lively's 37 or something like that. And so I think from the start there was always tension surrounding the movie in general and what Justin Baldoni would do with it under his Wayfarer production company, and maybe someone else should be playing it. I mean, TikTok was coming out with all these like better castings. We will always find that with movies, but there was always going to be a spotlight on this movie because it was one of the biggest books. It was from the book talk. Everyone loved It Ends With Us.
Book talk, yeah.
But, so it's already got this kind of emphasis on it. And then obviously the press tour happens and it's a don't worry, darling repeat.
It was a complete disaster. I mean, I feel like even regardless of all of this whole lawsuit, the book is about domestic violence. Blake Lively used it to launch her hair care line.
I think that was tone deaf. I honestly don't think that you can take away from that.
And then she said, right, girls, put on your florals, because obviously she plays a florist in the film and the book. and, you know, put on your floors, have a fun night out. And then some of the interviewers would be like, well, what do you think about the domestic violence of it all? And she'd be like, well, you know, you don't have to let it define you. And then any victim of domestic violence would tell you, you know, it can be a huge part of your life. So,
yeah, I do understand.
so that's so it got off to a rocky start. And then there was these interview clangers that she dropped where she would answer questions really sarcastically, and then everyone would be like, wow, Blake Lively doesn't seem very nice. But then it felt like, so you're sort of thinking, how can a PR campaign do that to her? But then when she filed the lawsuit, there was all of this drama that happened on set before we even got to this press tour. I mean, some of the allegations she's made in this lawsuit are quite shocking, that she wasn't given the right sort of sex scene intimacy, that she, you know, he apparently got one of his mates to play the doctor when she was giving birth, all this kind of crazy stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And then also he would talk to her about like nude women, and he'd make her talk about sex positions, and he'd make her feel really uncomfortable on set. He'd walk in on her naked. So you're thinking, wow, this poor woman, she might be quite unlikable, but she clearly has been a victim to some kind of sexual harassment, allegedly.
I mean, there is actually, once you get into the thick of it, you realise that there are so many details of this back and forth, this he said, she said. But on the note of the domestic violence, that is one of the apparently earlier fights, that the disagreements that they had, because she wanted it to kind of be a more uplifting sell PR standpoint, that, you know, it is a heroic thing that the character Lily has been through. She's resilient. She comes out on top. She breaks away from a toxic relationship. She does everything for her daughter, kind of thing. And he obviously wants it to be more that it's
a bit gritty.
A bit gritty. This is the hard. I mean, I actually had my own takeaway from even watching the movie. I didn't think it was kind of aggressive enough. That if you read the book, it's more detailed. In the book, I think that there were so many open-ended questions about, I felt like it needed to be more, this is what's happened, a bit more aggressive. The same with the relationship with her mother and father. Regardless, that kind of opened a conflict between him being the director, the, you know, second main part, and the head of the production company. So, you know, when you have these films, you have different kind of, I guess, bosses, right? But with Blake Lively, I think she's a producer as well on the film, and she's the main part. But then where do you go from there when you want to report something? The main character that you're alongside with is not only the director, but he's the head of the production company. You know what I mean? When you're complaining about someone, where does it go when he's literally the boss? But I want to kind of break it down for the audience, kind of a bit of a timeline, because I do think that this is quite confusing for people. December 20, Blake Lively files a legal complaint. Now, this is not a lawsuit. This is kind of making her allegations known about what she thinks occurred. That's when she comes out with that he sexually harassed her, and by harassing, that's kind of the comments about him and James, the other head of the Wayfarer, being former porn addicts. That James allegedly showed the video of his wife giving birth, that they spoke about her being sexy, that they had this multi-tiered plan to take down her reputation, which is obviously one of the main allegations. That there was repeated sexual harassment behaviour from Baldoni and Jamie Heath. Sorry, not James, Jamie Heath. They then take this to a meeting on January 4 last year and basically say, I'm not coming back after production. I'm not coming back from the production hiatus until X amount is done to help to relieve this toxic environment. And she's saying that she's not doing that just for herself. She's doing that for the rest of the cast and crew who've also felt uncomfortable. They then agree to certain terms. But then, obviously, everything happens with the press tour. It goes on. The report comes out. Justin Baldoni then sues the New York Post over New Year's Eve for $250 million in damages, because he's basically saying that you've defamed me. You've cherry-picked quotes from Blake Lively. You've made it seem that I'm the villain in all of this when there's more to the story. He said that Ryan Reynolds then basically, obviously Blake Lively's husband, basically tried to get him to be dropped by his agent. The agent then comes out and says that's not true. Also New Year's Eve, straight after that, Blake Lively then finally officially sues Justin for sexual harassment and organising a smear campaign. He hasn't sued her back, but he says he plans to.
Oof, it's so messy, isn't it? And I think that at the heart of this, there are some real issues at stake here. You know, the way people act on set is clearly unprofessional, and there's a culture that needs changing. But there is an element here of people just sort of, you know, brandishing their money. You know, not normal people can't go and sue people at work. This is the fact that Blake Lively is a multi-millionaire married to another multi-millionaire. And I think that she was left unhappy with what went down and wants to have the last word in all of it. Because I don't think she came out very well after the press tour.
No, you and I spoke about this on this show. I mean, this is... Whether or not this is true, that it was a multi-tiered smear campaign, it did the job.
Oh, it did.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
We all saw it on TikTok. We all saw it everywhere. Blake Lively was the new Anne Hathaway. Everyone thought her reputation was down the gurgler, as we say.
But what's interesting is that these are interviews that existed in the public domain for years and years, the ones that people were watching. So I wonder if it was just a clever sort of cherry-picked kind of campaign. But
she did say it. It's not like she can, you know, she can deny. She was rude to those journalists when they're just doing their job and she's just doing hers. And we've been in situations like that a lot where you're sat and you think, well, we've both got a job to do here. We both need to sort of produce something great for an audience, and if you've got one side that's not willing to do that, it makes it extremely difficult. What I do think that it's as unlikable as Blake, I think she is generally. I think
she's unlikable,
and I think that that's a shame because I love her and I love her husband. I love that kind of the powerhouse of them as a duo, as a power couple. But she does come across as unlikable. However, if she has been through what she claims she has been through, wouldn't you be a bit sort of hostile on that in that 100%. Production tour? You're going to be sat at the press tour, sat thinking, I do not want to be here. I'm not happy with how I was treated. I'm not happy with the people I'm working with. Of course she's going to come across unlikable.
But she didn't actually do any press with Justin throughout the whole press tour. They never even appeared on the red carpet together, did they?
Well, I think she refused to.
Yeah.
I don't know about him. I think it's complicated because this allegation from her lawsuit about the smear campaign says that Justin and Jamie Heath, the other producer on the Wayfarer production company, went to great lengths to tarnish her reputation during this period.
Well, they did hire a reputation PR, Nathan. I mean, that's not great lengths, that's just hiring a PR.
I know, but I kind of think they've come out and said, like, we've got receipts. Justin's team have come out and said, we've got receipts, we've got text messages. I will release every single text message to prove that, A, I didn't do this, but also debunk a lot of what she claims, because she claimed that some of the text messages, Blake Lively's claim is that he called her sexy and wanted to made various comments about the character being sexy, but his text messages say that she wanted her character to be dressing sexier, which was actually a bit of a conflicting thing because a lot of, when we were watching them actually film the movie, people were like, what is Lily wearing? You know what I mean? It became a bit of a...
Yeah, she wasn't... Her wardrobe wasn't, like, amazing.
Her wardrobe was incredibly random, I will say. Like, it was not how you picture the character.
It would be, like, a really baggy cardigan and then, like, a floral dress and then, like, boots.
Boxer shorts, hanging out of the jeans. It was really weird. So I think everyone can agree that both of them got that wrong.
Yes.
Okay? I think that needs to be taken out of the case.
They can agree on that one thing.
But then it just goes on and on. And these are the kind of text messages that she's gotten from a subpoena, Blake Lively's gotten from her, which we're in her original formal legal complaint, and she's now, but her legal complaint is basically the same as her lawsuit. The narrative online is freaking good and fans are still sticking up for Justin. You did amazing work. And this is all attributing to the smear campaign. The majority of socials are so pro-Justin. I don't agree with blah, blah, blah. Narrative is crazy good. Don't worry, I didn't kill her and send her in a box to your house. It's all very...
It's quite, it sounds inappropriate, but they're not... actually talking about killing Blake Lively.
No, of course.
This is, I mean, I know it looks awful in black and white, but this is how PRs and people in the entertainment industry do talk to each other on text.
Exactly.
It's just a fact. If you took WhatsApp messages and text messages from, I'm sure, any industry and laid them out there, they would look so shocking and pretty much everyone would be cancelled for something they've written. So they're just trying, you know, Melissa Nathan, I'm not saying that it's a job that I would necessarily want to do. She does crisis management. It exists. Lots of people do it, even in our country. They just don't necessarily advertise it. But so many companies use crisis management. So many companies actually have a crisis management department, but don't even advertise that they do that. It's, you know, it's quite a hush-hush, quite a taboo part of the industry of PR. She is essentially just doing her job, as we said. She's putting publicity out there. She's trying to change the narrative. And I don't know why it's so shocking.
It shed a light on it because, like you said, it is all covered up, and so we're seeing it. I think a lot of normal people are seeing that for the first time, and they're thinking, oh, what? So it's all sort of managed by someone outside of it. It's not just Blake versus Justin.
Because obviously no one outside of this industry knows that. The average consumer of news, the average Joe Blow watching It Ends With Us, watching the press tour, watching the Wicked press tour, watching the Barbie press tour. No one is thinking that this is such a machine, that this is all orchestrated.
I think that's what's difficult, don't you think, though, that we're sort of so bombarded with information now, and we've got so many of our people on TikTok who are, you know, obsessively looking through everything, and they're coming up with all of these theories. I mean, on the one hand, you kind of think, well, if it's now 2025, I can't believe after Me Too that we're still having these kind of conversations about people being unhappy with where they work and what they've had to suffer through. At the same time, there's also something in your mind is a bit like, I think when it was all kicking off with that press tour, we thought, is this all just to get publicity for the film? Is this just to try and get us all to go to cinema?
Which is sad, because it's like, this is not a film that even needs publicity.
It didn't make me want to go and watch the film. I actually went and I avoided the film because I was kind of so sick of Blake Lively and Justin by that point. I didn't even go and see it.
Don't Worry, Darling. I was like, oh, I'm sick of these people. I'm sick of that. Weirdly, the Glickard thing didn't affect me at all. I went and saw both of them. But I don't know. I know that we say that this is the norm because we know that this is what happens with companies behind closed doors.
And every political party has a spin doctor, you know?
Of course,
so
of course.
I think that the fact that Blake Lively is, I don't know, I feel like the fact that she's trying to expose him, it feels, she knows how it works. She's worked in the industry for a really long time. Ryan Reynolds, her husband, knows how it works. I feel that part of it feels it cheapens it a bit because actually if what happened on set is enough. Do you know what I mean? It is enough for her to actually have a complaint.
But
Why
I
doesn't
wonder
she just
if
leave it at that?
I know, but I wonder if you need big powerhouses like Ryan and Blake to be exposing this behaviour so it does scare off further productions from doing the same. If she is sexually harassed, if she's walking into 100%. An uncomfortable environment where you've got the main star, the biggest celebrity, the biggest name, Justin Baldoni is not a big name. The fact that if he did this, felt appropriate, and him and Jamie felt appropriate to be showing a video of, you know, his wife giving birth, walking in on her while she's breastfeeding or getting changed, making various sexual innuendos, that shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't have been happening years ago. It shouldn't be happening in 2024. So how do you bring light to it? You bring people with money and power to bring light to it. We can't have, you know, a random B-lister doing this. They just burn through all their money in legal fees. You kind of need someone like Justin and Blake to be doing that, where money is no object and they have the support of someone like Taylor Swift.
Do you think, and I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, you have to.
Do you think that, obviously Justin's going to put his defence forward.
Yeah.
Blake is obviously incredibly famous. Do you think that there could be an element of she's used to being treated a certain way and used to being spoken to in a certain way, and she didn't like how casually she was being spoken to?
I was honestly thinking that, and I thought this is the problem with this, though, it being the he said, she said, and you don't want to stop anyone who feels like they've gone through something from being scared of speaking out, because we're now criticising a bit.
You have to end up in a courtroom. You could just say, look, this makes me feel really uncomfortable, please don't do that.
But don't you think she went into this film production
Did she?
Yeah, that's what the meeting was about. That was the January 4 meeting.
And then
her and Ryan held a meeting at their penthouse in New York and invited
their penthouse in New York.
I know, yeah.
And invited certain crew and cast or whatever, Jamie and Justin there, and said, look, I'm not coming back until XYZ's done. Her claim is that meeting one of her claims was that I will not be retaliated against for holding this meeting. And that's the claim. That is basically the claim, that the PR smear campaign came from the fact that they held this meeting, that Ryan Reynolds bombarded Justin Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming Blake, to which he denied. And he was like, I did not do that. Apparently apologised and said, I'm so sorry if you felt like that, but I did not do that. She's obviously just she was back. I mean, I can't believe how quick she went back into production after giving birth to a 4th kid. That was commendable on its own. But I don't know, this is what we're talking about. Can you come forward with an allegation and not get retaliated against? Women really can't though, can they?
I don't know.
Even if it's true or false.
I know. I don't know. I do wonder if this is actually going to change the culture of, films for women. I think that she's able to do this because she has the backing of millions of pounds and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. I don't think that... I do wonder if she's only doing this because she didn't like how it all panned out with her reputation. Is she really doing it for the little actresses out there?
Yeah. Well, agreed. And
is she? I don't know.
But she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. She can just be completely out for herself and really selfish. And I probably would suggest that, that's exactly what she's doing. It's all about her.
She didn't like all the about her reputation. Crumbles.
All about the money that she might get from this potentially. But
you don't need it. That's the thing, is that Justin Baldoni is the one that doesn't have the financial backing. He owns a production company. That's his money feeding into that. The other thing about this is that in terms of reputations, his reputation as a host of a man's podcast, which is all about, emotional maturity, being able to confront things. It's all his entire brand, other than, he's kind of new into production world. He's only been doing it for I think 10 years or something. And he obviously did Jane the Virgin for a number of years. But his entire brand now is about being emotionally mature men.
That's a bit odd even in itself. So I'd never heard of him before this whole debacle. But I mean, it's almost like he doth protest too much. I mean, again, playing devil's advocate with him. If he's so emotionally mature, what's he doing? Rolling up into Blake Lively's dressing room when she's breastfeeding, telling her to lose weight. he also sounds really bad. I wonder if
her brother-in-law, Bart Johnson, Blake Lively's brother-in-law, who you would obviously know as Coach Bolton on High School Musical, phenomenal trilogy. Trilogy franchise.
Loving the trivia.
So Bart, he's very pro-Blake, obviously sister-in-law, and he came out and said, Justin Baldoni is a fraud. He tweeted it pretty insane. He was like, he's a fraud. He's built his entire reputation on X, Y, Z. This is not who he is. If that is true, he is the ultimate fraudster. He should be on bloody Traitors. Honestly.
Yeah, maybe he is a fraud. That could. Yeah. I do wonder. He's moving a little bit mad, to be honest. To be doing all these, to be one person behind the scenes, and then protesting all this stuff publicly.
Yeah, your entire business is about this.
Toxic masculinity. He seems to want to
he wants to abolish.
We all know who he is now, and
for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons. But then, what is it? What's the saying? There's no such thing as bad publicity, because he wants to be. He obviously wants his name to be bigger than what it is, and he wants a bit more money. And he's certainly got this.
But he has been dropped by his agency, and his co-host is also
by another. That's just how it works.
Maybe him and Armie Hammer could do a podcast together.
I know. They
cancelled.
I wonder if they do regret. Does Blake regret getting involved with the film? And does she?
No, I doubt that. I mean, she got her name in the one of the biggest films of the year.
That's what I mean. There's no such thing as bad publicity. They can both.
What about the second one, right?
Well, she's doing. That's it. She's doing another Colleen Hoover film.
Yes, it starts with us. It's the second one.
But is he in that one as well?
Well, yeah, the character's in that.
That's interesting.
So how do you
It's the author. She backed.
Yeah.
Colleen Hoover has backed that. I don't know. That to me was a big. Colleen Hoover was incredibly involved in the movie.
Which is unusual in itself, actually, for an author to be that involved.
I think when you're such a big author like that, you don't want anything to be taken, for a ride. You want your book to be standing on its own in its movie form. But her backing Blake, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a bit of a, this one person did something wrong, the other did something wrong. I don't think it's black and white. Blake is innocent, Justin is the villain. I feel like there's I feel like every text message, every receipt that will be brought to light will be cherry-picked by both parties. I don't think it's, do you know what I mean? Like,
also, it's not criminal, is it? So this is them.
Well, I don't even know if it's a trial.
It's exactly.
No,
so it's
civil.
So it's not like it's one is like not guilty or guilty. So we have to kind of look at it from the stance of like it's two people's experiences,
and there will be
blame on either side.
There'll be like libel and damages.
Yeah,
she's seeking money because she says the trauma stopped her from doing roles.
And I think that she's really unlikable. A lot of people don't want to go and see her in the cinema now. I think that's why she's actually brought this case, because I think that the cookie didn't crumble particularly well, and now the dust has settled, and now she wants to take her revenge, and she knows that putting it all in a legal document means that it can all be printed, and that is burying Justin Baldoni.
Yeah,
using the words of Melissa Nathan in that text message.
God, that was
we didn't know. We don't know how her bad publicity would have affected her career-wise going forward. For instance, like we don't know how many roles she might not have gotten because people were like, she's hard to work with.
She was getting a lot of trolling on Instagram.
She was getting so many.
The sales of her hair care line dropped. I think she was fairly popular before, and I think afterwards she was unpopular, and people didn't want to buy what she was selling, whether that be movies or products.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of accountability nowadays, though. If you've just kind of you've come across unlikable, it's as if you have to then have this like launch into this whole media frenzy of he said this instead and he did this to me, rather than just kind of owning up and saying actually maybe I didn't behave that great on set either. I don't know. It just seems as like you said, there's maybe two truths. Like
I agree.
I think that. You know what?
And two things can be two things can be like said at the same time. What was it you said earlier about, you can say Blake is not very likeable, but she also has been a victim. I think there's just...
But they can both be true.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I can... You kind of have to be a bit of a bitch to be taken seriously.
To get on,
Sorry, but you do. You can't be walking in there without a backbone when you're trying to assert yourself. The other... I do wonder how much money she has lost in roles that maybe she hadn't gotten. I know that like Rebel Wilson, for instance, she sued Bauer Media a couple of years ago for about 7 million Australian dollars because a lie that they published about her, lying about her age, she said hindered her from getting various roles, accumulating $7 million.
How do you prove that though?
You go to court.
To make it 7 million. How do you? I don't know. How do you really? You could say that about anything, really, couldn't you? Oh yeah, I would have been a multi-millionaire by this time if this hadn't happened in my life. Like it's just
you have to have money to even bring these civil cases anyway, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Which is why to my point, which is why I wonder if she knows that her and Ryan know that they're the right people to do that. If this is about affecting change in a very toxic industry.
Do we think it is about affecting change? Has she said that? We don't know that. I think she just wants. I think that's a good cover story for them.
Yeah,
they should really go with that line if they ever talk about it. But I do think that that's not why they've done this. I don't think they liked how it all panned out. But I think that if they can, I think that's how they should. That from a PR point of view, I think that's how they should spin it.
Yeah,
they want to make it better for the little people.
A little bit like the Wagatha Christie saga, in that it's a lot of us ordinary folk look at it and we think this is just people with a lot of too much money basically fighting. And I think we're all
it's not relatable.
There's huge things going on in the world. Why are they sort of scrapping? Sort it out. Absolutely.
And in our everyday life, if we have a situation like this, ultimately we have to resolve it and move on. We don't have millions of pounds to start slinging mud at each other in a court case. We just don't.
Do. That's the thing. Is it when they say, "Oh, bury them."
That was
he could literally get buried in legal fees, or that was.
We can bury anyone was that one of the text messages, and that just
imagine that being read. Imagine reading that about you. You'd be like, okay.
Yeah, but to be fair, that would be a hard pill to swallow, wouldn't it? So when you subpoena these text messages and you're like, oh,
but then again, reading that could have really triggered her ego, and been like, oh, hun, I'm going to bury you.
Yeah.
Just wait. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on because. It's kind of a similar situation, similar story, but this Blake Lively v. Justin Baldoni saga really sparked online commentary, as we know. But one of the things that came out of it was Kate Beckinsale basically coming out on Instagram with some wild accusations, kind of exposing Hollywood for all it is. We don't know, she's deleted the video, I think, or it's expired, I'm not quite sure, but basically the 51-year-old said that this is a very toxic industry. Obviously we know that's not, that's not rocket science. Everyone knows that, Hollywood is a machine of its own, but her accusations are pretty insane. Now she said, she struggled with anorexia for 15 years and she was made to go on the most insane diets while she was filming. She's not talking about just one film, she's talking about everything. She says that there are some kind of male colleagues that get a kick out of hurting female colleagues. She probably means in more like physical scenes, right? She said that in one film, she was hurt so badly that an MRI could prove that she had, been affected physically by some sort of like fighting. And she said, I was harmed to the point where MRI scans were proving it. I was gaslit and made to feel like I was the problem, blamed and ostracized, left out of like cast dinners and not spoken to as soon as I mentioned that there was a problem. She also, I think we already knew this, that she was kind of approached by Harvey Weinstein when she was just a teenager. She said she wasn't sexually assaulted by him. She said she was, one of the lucky ones. But there are some pretty insane, other than obviously what I've just read, pretty insane things. She was told she had to work the day after, do a photo shoot the day after she had a miscarriage. She said that she was kind of sexually harassed by someone that she trusted in a movie. She said that when she complained about one of her co-stars being drunk and having to prolong filming, that they didn't take it seriously and basically gave her a bike to ride around the set. Like, what is this?
Really insane. I mean, this feels really serious. She's not even trying to get money out of anyone. She's just like, I'm a bit older now. I'm not in loads and loads of films. I feel like it's fair to say she's probably had her career heyday. And this is the truth of the industry and it's terrible and it does need to change. So I feel like I'm almost like Team Kate. I almost like, right, she needs to get a book deal to write about her ordeals.
You need to get an interview with her.
She
needs to come on here and she needs to expose absolutely everything.
Because in that one kind of video, I don't know how long it was, 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
She just went through this list of really shocking tales, and she said there's loads more where that came from. And actually, because one of her most famous films, Pearl Harbor, where she co-stars with Ben Affleck, I think she had to then do another video saying, "Look, guys, Ben Affleck was lovely. It wasn't him."
Yeah, because obviously Ben Affleck is known to be a former alcoholic. I guess he's an alcoholic, but and she said no, that was not the co-star I'm talking about.
I do want to go through and actually.
But she did say that set was toxic.
Yes,
she said the Pearl Harbor set was incredibly. What did she say about Ben? Ben Affleck protected me on an extremely toxic film set and could not have behaved more respectfully.
The thing is, she is looking back at a time when it was before Me Too and it's before a lot of changes that have come into force. That's why the Blake Lively stuff is shocking, because you would hope that that's not happening in this day and age. But when what Kate's talking about, there was like a mixture, isn't there? She's definitely saying that, there's past behaviour that maybe wouldn't be acceptable now, but I think that when you listen to her, you do feel like that's just a terrible thing to go through.
Yeah.
But maybe was just part of that time, which is awful, but it was just part of that, that culture.
And they have intimacy coordinators now, don't they? I don't think that used to exist back in those days. So you just reminded me actually of something that was in the lawsuit with Blake. I think Blake said something like, in some of the kissing scenes with Justin, he bit me or he used his tongue. And I'm sort of wondering, where does acting stop? And it's very hard to prove when you're doing something like acting, isn't it? Like it actually it must be incredibly difficult from a legal point of view. I mean, and I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong. I'm just saying, like in scenes where she was really badly injured and she suspects, this actor got a kick out of injuring her and harming her as part of the role. How would she have said on set, oh, actually, he did it too hard? Because it's really hard to prove.
But that's why they've been bringing in intimacy coordinators, like you said. But in the lawsuit, in that meeting, the January 4 meeting, she says like
didn't have any.
Yeah, basically him and Justin and Jamie say, okay, we agree to bringing in an intimacy coordinator to make you feel more comfortable in those sex scenes, so you don't feel blindsided by anything that maybe I ask on the day. And she says, okay, they agree to it. But then in his lawsuit, he says that she was in no rush to bring the coordinator in. So basically kind of like maybe let that go under the radar. Maybe just like, yeah, we'll get it in when we get it in kind of thing. So again, he said, she said. But on the Kate Beckinsale thing, she posted this a few days ago, but I do wonder with the Justin and Blake saga, what other celebrities might come forward with various stories that might...
Every single one will have
of
story,
course.
won't they? Yeah.
I mean, we knew this from the Me Too movement when the Harvey Weinstein stuff happened.
But I don't feel like they ever say it until it's, you know, Sharon Stone did a really amazing autobiography because her career has sort of almost, you know, she's gone through the kind of heyday of her career and probably she's reached a stage where she feels that she can talk about it. I think what's really interesting is I wonder if there are any actresses or actors who are just on the cusp of making it. How do they put their foot down? How do they change a culture when they're in it and on the verge of making it? There doesn't seem to be an HR process, does there?
And I just think, one of the most insane things that I think that she said was the fact that Kate Beckinsale, that she was on such an insane diet and exercise regime that she lost her period twice. I consider that abuse. For a woman in probably in her 20s, 30s to have been told to be eating or exercising to a certain degree that you quite literally lose your period at a time where you may or may not be wanting to have a child, that is insane to me. That would be I would be literally filing a lawsuit on that day if that were me.
But I think as well that as you said, Amanda, that reflects a slightly different time because I think that even if you look at movies now, you do have women with curvier, more realistic bodies than the sort of 90s physique, which was essentially stick thin. And most actresses would almost be classed as anorexic.
Oh, of course. If you saw them today, I mean, you saw them in real life. The camera adds 10 pounds or whatever
when
it
we
adds.
go to red carpet events and see some of these Hollywood actresses, you
can't believe it.
They look so unwell and so stick thin.
When I saw him at the red carpet premiere in Sydney, the Baywatch one, I was like, oh, you don't have an ounce of fat on you. Guys, we're going to move on to the Liam Payne story, I should say. His tragic death keeps kind of evolving because we've obviously had this investigation happening out of Argentina into who was involved. I find this quite an interesting situation because we never really hear, you know, people being charged in relation to, I guess, a drug overdose or falling or whatever. But this is actually insane. 5 people now have been charged in relation to his death, one being his friend and then 4 hotel employees. 2 of these hotel employees are charged with manslaughter.
Shocking.
It is shocking stuff.
Really shocking. I mean, it's really difficult because we don't know the full version of events, but, you know, they made the wrong decision. Say you were the receptionist and you thought, right, we've got to get him out of this area in front of the guests. Obviously, it was the wrong decision to put him in that hotel room. But now the fact that she's being charged with manslaughter, that's you know, I don't know. I don't believe that she wanted him to die.
No, because yes. So the charges is that they've been negligent in the sense that they saw him in a erratic state down in the hotel lobby. They told him he had to go to his room, but then they called the police and say, look, we've got this hotel guest who's clearly on drugs, who's acting erratically, who's been smashing things and blah, blah, blah. We've taken him to his room, but the room has a balcony. So they knew there was a concern there. They knew there was a concern. And a lot of people wouldn't even call the police. Now, I'm not a judge or a juror, but it still to me is, I felt like they clearly, you know, knew that something was wrong. But yeah, someone should have gone and being there. But this is what the judge said. The judge presiding over this case, Judge Laura Bernard, who's in charge of this case, concluded that due to his state of intoxication, Liam Payne would have confused the balcony of the hotel room with a possible exit. And as he tried to leave through the balcony, he lost his life in an unplanned fall.
It's so tragic.
It's really tragic.
I mean, I thought about Liam Payne a lot over Christmas actually, because I was of the kind of the 1D era of just absolutely loved all of the boys, and to think that his family are there without him this year, I found it really, really sad. And then when you hear all about all these charges and how it's turned to this criminal action, you kind of realise how avoidable it was. For me, what the incredible part of it is that you can watch the video, you can hear the recording of the 999 call.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're very involved and you think, well, what would I have done in that situation? But hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing.
I mean, I would really hope that no one involved would have wanted that end result.
And, of course.
You know, and it's so upsetting, tragic that it happened. And you just have to hope that like lessons can be learned from it, because it doesn't bring him back. I mean, these people going to prison and their lives being ruined, you know, it doesn't bring Liam back.
How far do you cast the net? I mean, what about the record label that dropped him the day before as their blood on their hands? What about his girlfriend who left?
And said we're going to release his album.
I mean, you could kind of link it to everything we've spoken about today. Blake Lively, you know, Kate Beckinsale, and Liam Payne. It's people who are very, very famous, who have been in toxic environments, and you have to kind of remember that maybe that we have a duty of care more now than ever.
Yeah.
And we need to do something about it, and we sort of talk about it. We say, yeah, we're going to look after people and we're going to be different from back in the day. I mean, I got down a rabbit hole of Wicked stuff, and I was looking into The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and the making of that, and all the struggles that the cast went through.
Of course.
Then, you know, and everything, and there were people who never recovered from making that film. You know, they were in hospital, they had cancer, there was, you know, all the drug overdoses. I mean, it was horrific. So it's as if we're not learning our lesson. And then the time's going on. This is 2025 now, and we're still making the same mistake.
And the waiter who, you know, admitted to taking drugs with Liam, he has been charged with supplying drugs. And I think, on your note, Amanda, this whole thing did feel like a lot of people taking advantage of someone.
Yes.
With money, with status.
In a very vulnerable state.
Also clearly someone who was quite generous, like who, you know, was happy to share. We're going to move on to a kind of a lighter story to end the show. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, we know her as the 33-year-old who spent years behind bars for killing her mother. I started with this being a lighter story.
Yeah,
but it is a lighter story. She was a victim of Munchausen by proxy, which means that basically her mother convinced her that she was sick and would inject her with certain things to make her look sick and blah, blah, blah. She was released from prison last December after serving 7 years of a 10-year sentence, I think it was. And she was released. She had been married, you know, in 2022 in the prison courthouse. She gets out. She spends about 2 to 3 months with her husband, Ryan Anderson. And then she breaks it off with Ryan, causes a massive TikTok storm. Everyone's involved because they're both on TikTok. She then gets back with her ex-boyfriend her ex-boyfriend being Ken Urker, who she was in a relationship with while she was in prison, in a long-distance relationship while she was in prison. And then she falls pregnant with Ken's baby. And to the day of her release, 1 year later, she gives birth to her baby daughter, Aurora.
Aww.
Can we talk about that 360 at 1 year?
I'm fascinated.
I'm fascinated by this girl.
I mean, you couldn't really write it, could you? Like all of everything that's happened to her. And I also feel like, why is that? Why is it so easy for her to have met someone in prison?
2 people, huh?
I'm kind of thinking, like, what am I doing?
Take a look at it.
Like, someone in prison.
She's met someone in prison. Had obviously done the whole, you know.
She's met 2 people in prison.
A lot.
2.
Then to get married, not work
they get
out.
special visits, don't they, in the
US? So basically,
where they can make babies.
Canoodle.
What happened was she got Ken wrote to her.
Yeah.
Her now partner wrote to her in prison.
An old-fashioned love story, you know.
An old-fashioned a love letter to say, like, I stand by you, because her imprisonment was obviously quite controversial. She killed her and her ex-boyfriend from who we don't even mention anymore. He's in prison for life. They killed her mother, but her mother was obviously abusing her. So then there's always that, is it self-defense? Is it an act of, you know, she was, I can't remember how old she was when she went to prison, but her actual education, her actual age is a lot lower because she has, you know, been a victim of certain medicine being put into her, certain lack of education in a general sense. But when she was sent to prison, a lot of people were advocating for her, saying that she shouldn't be in prison. She should be going to some sort of rehabilitation centre and learning to be a normal girl her age. But anyway, she meets Ken. He writes to her. He's like, I stand by you. They start up a relationship. He breaks it off. She's devastated. Ken then writes to her, Ken Anderson. They start a relationship. They get married in 2022 in the prison courthouse. She then gets out on good behaviour, on parole. She starts filming her reality TV show the day she gets released in December 2023. They're all on camera. It's very much showed her first moments with her family, with her dad, her stepmom, her half-sister. And then, a few months later, she's like, I've split with Ken. He then goes on a TikTok rampage saying she's cheating on me splits with Ryan, I should say. Sorry, splits with Ryan. Goes on a TikTok rampage saying that she's cheated on him. Everyone on TikTok gets involved. Who are you siding with? She gets back with Ken. Now they fall pregnant. They give birth to Aurora to the day.
Well,
the actual day
that is
of
spooky,
her release.
actually, isn't it?
I've got to say, I'm only familiar with Gypsy Rose Blanchard because I watched The Act in lockdown, which is the dramatisation starring Joey King of what actually happened. I think we're ready for The Act Part 2. I think the fans need to know what happened next.
We've got enough detail, haven't we?
It's just kind of like, she's the kind of girl who gets out of prison and she hit the ground running. She literally thought, you know what? I'm married. I'm just going to dump him, get back with the ex.
She'd wasted time behind bars. She needed to just go and live her life, didn't
100%.
she? She went for it.
She was hilarious in the reality show. She's talking about sex. She's talking about having babies. She's just...
But how is she going to know how to mother Aurora, given her own experience? She's never seen mothering in its normal glory.
I mean, I guess that's like everyone, really. She's kind of one of those people that lives rent-free for me. She's probably my favourite person on the internet. And I commend her because I just think Amanda, every single girl out there should be learning a thing or two about Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
I'm actually going to go
until you get what you want.
We're wrapping this. I'm going to go in I'm going to watch The Act because I haven't watched that, and I'm going to watch all of the documentaries. I'm going to learn.
Maybe she should do a dating book. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, my dating tips.
Dating tips. We'll be getting her on the show to discuss what she learned from inside the house. Oh, that is all the time we have today on Virgin Radio's Showbiz Wrap. Thank you to Hannah Hope and to Amanda Devlin for joining me for all their analysis. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Virgin Radio YouTube page. We'll be back next week.